Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome to 2025.
Yes, this is the Mystic Files. I am Riz the Wiz, psychic medium, trance channel, and shaman.
And I'm an intuitive empath, Lady O.
And we have been, oh my God, traveling what I call the magical road for a year and a half on this podcast of Metamystic with
It's
our
been
psychic,
incredible.
Right? Channeling Psychic Sundays. You guys have been with us for, my God, every week with our live broadcasts and doing readings. And now we are going to open up the Mystic Vault for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Our top mystical stories of 2024.
That's right. And we selected the top stories that we like on Reddit. And we're going to go ahead and read them to you. And would you like to go first?
Sure. Okay. I'm going to start. It's been, I like to say at the end of every year, it was a wild ride. It was a wild year. And I don't think it ever changes. And with some of these stories, woo! Are you ready to hear some?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to read them and you tell me what you think.
Okay.
All right? Straight from Reddit, guys. I read it on Reddit. Is that why it's called Reddit?
That just gave me chills.
Hold up. Is it called Reddit because you read it on Reddit?
I think so.
Okay, that's actually blowing my mind. I know we don't have time for just me staring with my mouth open, but let's try it to read the first one. Okay. Here's a story from Mystical Orphan. This is all first-hand accounts, guys. Moth Man. My mom went out on our porch one night around 3 a.m. to smoke. It was pretty dark outside, but she could still see, and since she isn't afraid of the dark and the area we lived in at the time was pretty safe, she didn't turn on our porch light. She had the weird feeling like something was watching her, so she looked around and she saw a huge creature the size of a very tall man with its wings wrapped around itself like it was trying to keep itself warm on
me.
Right now.
Like what I'm doing.
On our roof.
Okay.
Let me tell you something. If I wake up at 3 a.m. and you're not in bed laying next to me and I go outside.
And I'm standing there?
On the roof.
Oh, on the roof. That's scary because there has been many times I've stood outside at 3 a.m. trying to cool down my hot flashes. Let me tell you.
This would be the opposite. Your wings wrapped around you. All right. This is serious. This is about the Moth Man.
Okay.
She said it was way too big to be any kind of native bird in the area, and we did check to see if that was possible. But the scariest part was its eyes. They were a glowing red and just locked right in on her, watching to see what she would do next. My bedroom was right next to the porch, and she came and got me to try and see what it was, but by the time I got there, no less than a minute as I was awake and couldn't sleep that night, it was already gone. My mom was freaked out for weeks and wouldn't go out onto the porch alone at night for a bit afterwards.
See, that's where I believe it because I don't know. Somehow I believe this story. And you know what's interesting is I recently heard about Moth Man, and I recently heard that I guess is it kind of in the north? Is it in the southeast? I mean, is it like Louisiana area?
No,
these sightings
I've
are
heard of it actually all over the world. In fact, even in India, there is.
Really?
Yeah, so I think that this is an actual cryptid.
So yeah, an interdimensional creature, right?
Yeah, or lives maybe under the ground.
Or in the trees.
Isn't that possible?
Is it really fly?
Yeah, I believe so.
And it has markings in the wings and everything.
It's
Have you heard anything more about other than this story? Have you heard anything other than like another Mothman story?
Mothman?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Because to me, I have very little information on it.
Yeah, it doesn't get the same amount of press, I guess, that, Bigfoot gets or the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah.
But when you dive into, I think it's called cryptozoology, which is the study of cryptids or so-called mythical creatures that people have passed down in either Native American tradition or other indigenous cultures, whether it's Celtic or whether it's, African or South American. And like we have the chupacabra. So these are all first-hand accounts. So passed down from generation to generation. So I think that the reason why you're not seeing them day to day is because you're not meant to see them. They live in between dimensions. They're interdimensional. They travel in and out of our dimension.
I mean, I believe it's possible that this cryptid exists because how is it so many accounts of people who have seen this. And beside, like you said, it's not the popular cryptid.
Yeah.
But I have heard of other people who I've seen, and I don't know why they call it the Moth Man.
I never
that makes
challenge
me,
the validity of it.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about personal experience. So if someone goes, well, what's the evidence? Right now, you're just going to go into science versus the unexplained, and trying to put the template of what you know to be real against something that is completely out of the box.
But aren't we? Yeah. And I mean, I think we're at a stage in life right now where nobody, with AI and everything coming in, like nobody's starting to even know anymore what's real. And, videos and photos and blah, blah,
Oh,
blah.
so you mean like holograms?
I mean, just right now with AI technology. The reason I'm bringing that in is the consciousness, the collective consciousness is changing to where more and more people are not knowing what is real.
Right.
Now, track that cool, back in the day, before electronics, before internet, before AI, there was conversations back in the 1800s and 1500s and in different countries and cultures where you're seen interdimensionally. So it's kind of like it's getting to this point where everybody's starting to question what is real and what is considered valid.
Well, I like anything that blows up the narrative,
reality.
at least to help us question things, because that's the way we grow. Is we have to stay open, right? Isn't it interesting that so many things we deem as valid has to be proven by a technology?
I know.
So back in ancient India, in ancient texts, they were describing pulsating, radiating molecular structures, atoms. Okay. And how could people couldn't prove that in the 16, 17, 1800s, even though this knowledge was already there in India, maybe in other places too. And then you have to have these atomic microscopes, if that's the correct word, to show you that there are atoms and that they are pulsating and radiating. And you go, okay, it is real, because now we have the technology to prove it. But psychic ability is a technology.
Yeah.
Channeling, intuitive sense is a real thing. So we're exploring that.
Well, more and more people are starting to feel and see things that are multidimensional.
So Mothman
I'm going to read to you the next story.
Okay, you got it.
Okay. So this is by the Paranormal Reddit group, and the name of the profile is Vivid Definition 4972.
All right.
Title: Talking to a Ghost, What Do I Do Next? I was at the park, and this man, about 63, came and sat down on the same bench as me. For a while, no one said anything to me, and then when he asked me for the time, I gave it to him, and we just started talking about everything, his family, his job, he's retired, and all that. I asked if he came to the park a lot, and he said yes. I told him I'd meet him there tomorrow because he was pretty dope to talk to. I told him I'll call him when I was at the park and took his number. When I got to the park the next day, I called and a lady answered, and I asked to speak to Dexter, and she said why, and I told her I was just letting him know I'm in the park at the same spot. She replied, what am I talking about? I told her our plans of meeting, and you know what this lady says? She tells me Dexter has been dead for 3 years. I'm like, no, I literally was talking to him in the park yesterday, and I noticed, and I told her what I told her what we talked about, and she couldn't even believe it. We really just were both shocked. We continued to talk about it, and I told her I would love to come to hear her story sometimes. She's out of town now, but when she comes back, we will meet. This shocked me so much. Now,
I have chills.
I know. Now, at first, I believed it, and then I didn't believe it because I there were some parts of the story that I was like, I don't think I would take his number and call the number and say, I'm meeting you there. Like, when am I meeting you there to talk again? I mean,
people do stuff.
I mean, it could, you'd be surprised if there's nothing else going on in there.
Like, I've had friends who do stuff. People I know personally, they tell me they did something. I'm like, you did that?
But the moral of what I'm trying to say is that I actually do think that this happens quite often, where people who have the ability to really see a premonition or a ghost, a spirit from the other side in its full form, which there are people who have that ability to see it, like in the well, no, but you can't see in the flesh and blood.
I have seen it, but I don't see
and
it
not flesh and blood, but like
I don't see
you can see like the material
very
aspect
once in a
of it.
while. It's the only time.
Okay, so those people, see them, especially, young kids see it a lot too, but they see them walk in the room or they talk to them or they have conversations with them.
That's because the thing is that I've noticed this a lot, is that if you're completely not thinking about it in life, it's like you have opened up. There's no restrictions. The floodgates are open. The portals are open. You're not disbelieving and you're not believing. So you're neutral.
Yeah.
And so just like a car, when it's in neutral, you can move it forward or backwards.
Right.
With a neutral energy around you, you're able to see things from different perspectives, right? And so that's the thing. He was open. He didn't know he was open. And so Dexter just walking around the park.
It's funny. I got a feeling he was a male also.
Yeah, so did I.
was telling this story.
Yeah. Because I didn't think a female was going to get his number.
Right.
And then the wife is going to be like, excuse me, you're talking to my...
Exactly.
She's getting mad at her dead husband for talking to some woman in the park.
What made you have chills?
Because when I get chills, I think for me, it's a tell that that's true. Right? As a medium, that's just one of my own little signals about it. Because the moment, I can feel that moment of when she says to him on the phone, what are you talking about? Like, did she think for a second that maybe he didn't die?
No.
And faked his death?
Yeah, it could be, right?
Right?
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty terrifying. But unless you actually went to the funeral and actually saw.
Have you ever had dreams of people who died and then your dream... No, have you ever... Right, someone who died in real life, but then you dream and they're there in the dream and you're like, but you died. Do you know you died? Have you ever had that happen?
Yeah, I mean, here's the funny thing between me and you. It's very interesting. When I dream about people I love that have passed on or crossed over in my dreams, and they're very vibrant and alive, I somehow know it's a dream in a weird way. Like at the time, I don't know, but I do kind of know. You, on the other hand, has shared dreams with me that you literally did not know that they had actually crossed over in this dimension, like in this 3D, like in this life.
Real life seemed like the dream, rather than the dream,
right? Because
so I'm in the dream, like talking to my brother who passed away,
right? And you are convinced it's real.
Yeah, I totally forgot that there's this other life,
and you wake up in shock and have to go through the process again. And you've also had that about your mom too.
Yeah. So let's go to the next one.
Okay.
Top stories that freaked us out from Reddit, guys. Okay, here we go. This kind of is up your alley because of the show that we watch, Skinwalker Ranch. This is off of Reddit just a couple of months ago from Holiday Horse 3100. Although sadly I've never seen one, I do believe in Bigfoot. I also believe in skinwalkers because I did see one. I live in northern Arizona with both the Navajo and the Hopi Native American reservations in close proximity. Heard many stories about them from Native American friends in school, always had fear in their stories. Right after school, I got a summer job with a herpetologist from the U of A working on his master's. The job involved trapping lizards and rattlesnakes in specific geogrids, measuring, weighing, identifying, then releasing. The day this happened, it was just before dusk. Full moon coming up, right on the edge of the Navajo boundary. The roads out there tend to be really bad, so we three were in a truck and going slow. The brights were on. We saw a man standing on the side of the road, middle of nowhere. We stopped, asked if he wanted a ride. He just shook his head, no, so we drove on. He had a very distinctive turquoise squash blossom necklace on. A few minutes later, a super large coyote started running alongside the truck, which was strange. They don't normally do that. It kept on running in front of the truck, so we stopped to let it move on, but it stopped in front of us about 15 feet away and just stared at us. The brights were on, and all three of us saw the necklace hanging down around its neck. After staring at us for a couple of minutes, it ran off down the road in the same direction we were going. We all said, "Did you see the necklace at the same time?" We were definitely spooked by this. About 10 minutes later, we reached the paved road, and as we started to turn onto it, the headlights caught a man standing on the side of the road. It was the same man with the same necklace. There is no way a human could have traveled that distance in that amount of time. Really spooked now, we hauled ass back into town. Mentioned it to some Navajo friends. They said, never speak about it. It will come to you. When the three of us talked about it again, we had no explanation except Skinwalker, which frequently takes the shape of Coyote the Trickster. This happened in 1971. I am 71 now, and that incident is still as clear as day in my memory.
Well, those desert areas, we've driven through there, and
we've done retreats in Sedona.
It feels so crazy when you're driving through there.
It does.
You can feel all this like UFO energy and all this like portal energy, and everything is just so heightened, and there's just less noise and telephone signals and
there's
lights.
Certainly Sedona is the vortex of energy. Everyone can feel it. So what do you think about this? So the Skinwalker, a shapeshifter. Do you believe in shapeshifters?
I never did until I started watching Skinwalker Ranch. And if you haven't watched it, you guys, you have to watch it. It's not spooky stories. It's actually all scientific exploration to isolate these anomalies to try to understand what they are.
Yes.
But inside of that, you hear these stories from the Hopis and all the Native Americans about historically passed down through generations, stories of skinwalkers.
Yes.
And I do believe them. I mean, there's too much evidence at this point.
And we've had a few people that we spent a lot of time in Sedona, Arizona, and some surrounding areas. And in our retreats and travels doing shamanic work and healing that we do, we have had stories, personal stories, one in particular from a tour driver who would do off-roading Jeep tours in Sedona. And she told me that she saw a man running. She said she thought it was so blurry that she couldn't understand what could be running so fast. It was kind of out in the brush, and then she saw a silver orb as well in broad daylight flashed. And these stories were also on Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine seeing the necklace of the dog? Now that Skinwalker wanted them to know.
There's something that happens to the human psyche when you see these anomalies and things like this that happen outside of your everyday norm. It lives inside of you in a different place. It keeps those lines of communication, I think, open, your psychic lines, because you're communicating telepathically and visually, and you're receiving information that's outside the norm, outside the human condition, outside the programming. Yeah. And I feel like it just like activates the sides inside of you.
You think in 2025 this is going to increase?
Yeah, absolutely.
All the high strangest encounters.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen a lot more to people who never believed.
Yes.
Because the universe wants this information to get out. And because how else are we going to expand our minds and for the future that's coming? All right, so what's your next one?
Okay, so the next one is from XX Little Miss J. I wanted to share something that's not necessarily paranormal, but probably one of the scariest moments of my life. I was a teenager living at my parents' house and was headed out to my boyfriend's place in my car after a long day at work. My parents have a very long driveway in a field on a dead-end road in very rural Maine. I'm fiddling with something, not paying attention to my driving, rolling slowly up the driveway, and all of a sudden there's a huge crash and the car jolted, and I looked up to see a dog that looked remarkably like a Cujo. In parentheses, it looked like a domestic Rottweiler, clawing at the hood of my Saturn car, foaming at the mouth and barking insanely loud. It managed to get up on the hood, so I put it in reverse and stalled the car, manual shift. The dog gets to the windshield, eyes glowing red for orange, I can't remember. And I'm screaming, starting the car, flooring it in reverse, and the dog disappears in the tumble. I sit there scared for my ever-loving life, waiting for the dog to come charging back, but nothing happened. It was completely silent. I drove forward, waiting for a thump, but nothing. Nothing in the surrounding fields or behind the vehicle. When I had a chance to finally get out of my boyfriend's and look at the car, sure enough, there's a bunch of scratches and gouges on the hood. No one around owns a Rottie, and it never happened again, and no one saw the dog but me. To this day, I thought it was some sort of skinwalker.
Can a dog make gouges in the hood of a car?
Yes.
A regular dog could do that?
Yeah.
That's metal.
Well,
like
you have to. I think it's a supernatural situation.
Yeah. But can a regular dog is what I'm. So she said there's no Rottweilers.
If it's a kind of a cheaper.
What's up with the glowing red eyes, though?
Yeah, that's the thing. People who see skinwalkers, and people who see these multidimensional creatures
Yeah.
always typically see this glowing red eyes or glowing orange eyes.
I think it's because the light spectrum in this dimension into which they're popping into is different. It's not that these are demon eyes, right? Because that's just something like from stories that would scare people if they have red eyes. I think that the roots of that are simply because these creatures, there's other realities, other dimensions, and there's beings and entities in those dimensions. And so this, when these experiences happen, the way it comes across to us is that the eyes are this demonic color, but it's a different refraction of the light.
Yeah.
That's what I feel.
Do you think if she would have got out of the car, do you think this
Oh,
thing-
absolutely. It could have attacked her physically?
Yeah,
Yes. Because spirits can actually physically interact with you. They can knock things off of shelves. They can scratch you. There's been a lot of haunted houses where you walk in where
Right.
people have been scratched by
Now, do you feel
spirits.
like, okay, so there's two ways I feel like this can happen. You could either have like an entity or an energy or an animal coming through a portal. That's one way.
Yeah.
Or another way is they manifest enough energy inside of themselves, because you have to create a lot of energy. The field of energy has to be intense and concentrated in order to develop this like 3D material physical body to manifest itself.
Yeah.
So going from like apparition to now full manifestation in the flesh and bone, which a lot of people have actually seen.
It's kind of the same thing, though.
Yeah, but one is a portal. Like I feel like portals sometimes.
Also,
The
it's in a
impression I
particular
get-
spot. So a portal's in the particular spot, but
It's
the thing
easier
you're
for
talking about
energy
can
to
happen
pass through.
anywhere. So one is
Yeah.
almost like it's more intentional. Well, I guess,
Because on Skinwalker Ranch, that portal or portals there
Yeah.
creates like a doorway.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's just a doorway, basically, and interdimensional activity is constantly happening.
Right.
But like in random places like this boyfriend's driveway,
Yeah.
I'm not thinking necessarily there might be a portal there, but I'm thinking there might be a energy. I don't know, like this being, this skinwalker from another dimension, created enough energetic frequency, enough power to manifest itself in the 3D and become actually physical.
Yeah.
To actually damage her car, to actually be in the flesh and
Yeah.
blood.
Yeah. I think then it's just a matter of like, I mean, we're never going to know, right? But it certainly is definitely not in this dimension.
What would you recommend if that woman came to you and said, "What do I do if this happened to me again?" Good
I would tell
question,
her,
right?
you have to, first of all, understand that this phenomenon is real. You can actually be physically damaged by this being. Clearly your car was. It depends on whether she wants to believe or not. Some
I
people
know.
say, no, it was just some crazy dog and it was random. Fine, if you're going to believe that everything's random and it was just, there's always a logical explanation.
Because your mind wants it to be
See,
rational.
I go like this when I say logical, because to me, when we say something is a spirit, that's logical. Isn't that interesting that you say, oh, there must be some logical explanation, not illogical explanations like spirits and energy and dimensions, when all of our ancestors have been talking about it. We ourselves have experienced it, right? It's wild. I got one for you. You ready? Mm-hmm. Okay. Here's one from Rando 13888.
Okay.
My random experience when I was 22 living in Massachusetts. Such a weird story. I've only told a few people this weird story, but I figured it's time to write it down. I still feel like a basket case for typing this on my phone, but I need to get it over with. I'm 37. I live in an apartment. I have no sleep issues anymore. I'm good. When I was around 22, my parents had a newly built house in Rehoboth, Massachusetts. I slept upstairs and they stayed downstairs. It is a huge house. Strange things would regularly happen to me. I have a bunch of these stories which I'd only tell if asked, but there's one crazy one that stands out in particular. This is so cringe, but it's the truth. I used to post random away messages on AIM. That's AOL Instant Messenger, if you guys remember that. Mm-hmm. One was something like, out chasing UFOs, something really corny. I can't believe I'm typing this. I woke up in the middle of the night, maybe 3 a.m. I had a futon in the middle of my room that I slept on sometimes and a bed near my wall. That night I was laying on my futon. I woke up, opened my eyes laying down, and thought I was hearing the radio in my head. This wasn't a dream in my opinion. I dream every night. I know what dreaming is. To this day, I believe this was real. Anyways, I heard an AM radio pretty loud. I thought it was in my head because my electronics and TV were all off, but I heard like Spanish AM radio in my head. It was very audible, but I couldn't focus on what they were saying. I know this makes no sense, but it's the truth. Maybe because I just woke up. I immediately stood up and faced my TV. My whole room was also completely lit up with flashing pulses coming from the window. What's crazy was I was completely calm, in full control, but wouldn't look out the window because deep inside I was scared and couldn't believe what was happening. I mean, I told myself it was the cops or an ambulance. Where I live, there are no street lights. I'm in the woods. I have a neighbor's house in front of my dad's house, but no street lights. So I try to look outside and in the street. Probably like 100 feet in the street, there looked to be something small, maybe the size of a small car, but lower to the ground. It was hard to tell the shape due to how bright it was. This thing was insanely bright, just flashing in an irregular pulse. The whole street and my room were just lit up. The light was a pure white, no blue or red. I was still in a weird shock, but as calm as could be, telling myself this isn't happening. Went and sat on my bed, and the next thing you know, it was around 7 a.m., and I was still sitting on my bed. I'm 37 now, live in East Providence. My parents still live at the same house. Till this day, I'm convinced I saw a UFO land in the middle of my street and had some sort of high-energy interference which caused AM radio to come out of my TV. I've had weird things happen to me at night as well, but told myself I may have been dreaming. I won't get into it now. This is such a weird story, but I can't shake it. It wasn't a dream. What's funny is how specific the strobe... I guess I cut it off. So
that is 100%.
Yeah.
An experiencer situation.
I do feel that, right? Because, first of all,
it's a small ship, but it could come in any size.
Yeah, some people have said that those they're like they go back to a mothership and they're smaller because some of those beings are like 4 feet tall.
But that radio sound.
Yeah. You've seen Close Encounters. We've all seen it, right?
Yeah.
It is, of course, these signals that interfere. They shut cars off. All electronics seem to go haywire. We can only assume that it is because of the signals given off by the UFO. These states, these experiences where you don't know whether you're dreaming or you're crazy or you just imagined it. Had to live with something like that is so crazy.
Because it changes you.
Yeah.
And then the fact that she's sitting on her bed until 7 a.m.
Yeah.
So it could be time missing. It could be abductee, and they put her back, and
it feels like that this person
lost her memory,
was abducted. Yeah.
But she should do a hypnotherapy session to find out exactly what happened if she can handle it.
I think a lot more people have had abduction experiences than they even know about.
Yeah, because their memories are wiped.
Wow.
Yeah. I know it sounds scary because I know that there's, the good aliens and the bad aliens.
Sure.
But this has been going on since the beginning of time.
Well, some people believe that we ourselves are aliens. We are part of we are genetically linked to them before, like that we came to this planet part of some other extraterrestrial race, and that's how we actually got here. And so they dropped us off, and they're like our cousins in some way coming back.
Checking on us.
Checking on us. Some of them getting genetic material from us. Some of them just watching. Oh, fascinating.
Are you ready for this is our last one.
All right.
Okay. So this is from our Cryptids. Can someone tell me what this encounter may have been? There are no stupid answers. I haven't told anyone this story yet. I have still been trying to find an answer, but I have given up on figuring out the logical explanation, in quotes, at this point. That's funny. Please hear me out and let me know if this sounds like any cryptid you know of. It was 3 days after Halloween, 2024. I live in Southwest Georgia, and my home backs up to a rather large forest. It was about 2 or 3 a.m. and I couldn't sleep, so I went on my back porch to read and smoke and have some tea. I was out there about maybe 25 minutes when suddenly I hear what sounded like something heavy falling or jumping from a tree and hitting the forest floor violently. I thought maybe a tree fell at first until right where I heard the noise come from. I immediately after began hearing what sounded like something walking around on all fours, something large. Now I assume a bear. There is a fence directly in front of me, so I know I can dart inside before it can reach me. So I stay sitting down, curious to see if this quote-unquote bear or whatever it is, my eyes can set diligently on the dark forest. Then for a split second, illuminated by my porch light, I can see a shadowy figure of whatever it is. And it wasn't furry, nor cute, nor a bear. It was all black, huge, limbering, and humanoid, and crawling around on all fours, scurrying around, ducking and diving behind the trees, maybe 15 feet in front of me in the darkness. And then the laughter begins. The best way to describe this laugh was like a stereotypical witch with some uncanny animalistic distortion. It was cackling so loudly, psychotically, maniacally, and mockingly. I thought surely my neighbors would be coming outside any moment. I was absolutely frozen in fear. I couldn't move. I didn't want to move. I thought if I did whatever it was, would give chase. Okay, that's how she says it. So I sat frozen, staring back blankly at the forest that mocked me. This laughing and staring match went on for 3 long minutes. Finally, I found the courage to look down long enough to grab my phone and record a video with a flashlight. The moment the flashlight hit the trees, the laughter subsided, of course, but the scurrying around continued. Finally, I loudly yelled, "Fuck this," and dashed inside. A week later, I was awake late again, this time in my bedroom, and hear what sounded like human footsteps running around on my roof in circles. It lasted maybe 4 to 5 minutes. That was the last anything like this has happened. Wow. God. That's terrifying.
You know, you that is going to play over in that person's mind for the rest of their lives.
Oh my God.
How is that? How do you live with that? Because you're the only one it happened to, and you know how real it was.
Yeah.
And so you can tell people, and they'll be like, they really believe you.
I wonder sometimes if the person is having an altered experience of their own. So let's say it's not even happening in the 3D. Like, let's say if you were sitting right next to me, but I saw it and heard it, but you didn't hear it and see it. Mm-hmm. So the scurrying on the roof and stuff.
That's right.
I wonder if like they're having their own, like, because this has happened to me a long time ago, many years when we first met. Right. I had heard and seen a cryptid.
Yep.
That
I know.
Yeah. And it was terrifying, and it was very visceral. So, but if anybody else was in the room at the time, nobody would have seen it. Is the point what I'm trying to make.
Well, look, a lot of us have had people a loved one who's in the hospital, and they're about to pass away, and we've had experiences where that person who's in the hospital bed will refer to something else happening in the room. Well, they'll say, "Oh, so and so is here," or "What about these people?"
That's right.
Right. So for me, those were like spirit guides coming to get them, or a loved one from the other side. Mm-hmm. So you're in the room and you don't experience it. They experiencing it. They're not hallucinating. They are not so attached to their physical body, their consciousness. Right. So they are more at one with the universe.
Well, like in my case, when this happened like 15 years ago, and you knew all about it because I gave you the play-by-play and I got on the phone.
Yeah. You were scared.
I was scared out of my mind, but I remember feeling like not only was this real, what I was witnessing, but I felt like I was actually, there was a part of my brain that accepted this to be reality, even though I knew there is no way that creature could exist in this dimension on this planet with us right now. Well, I didn't think it's possible.
It's where the veil becomes thin, because now you go, well, dimensions, right? Yes, they are in another dimension of our agreement is to be in this 3D, and they are in another dimension, but these bleed-throughs happen at very particular times to all of us.
And it could be high stress. The person's under high stress. It could be the person is in an open state, like you've said, like their mind is clear or open, or their heart is open.
Yeah.
There's something that is giving rise to, or like you said, when people are sometimes not paying attention is when it happens.
Yeah, I don't know if it's stress, but it could be that the stress activates their senses, makes them more heightened.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like you can get stronger when you're stressed.
Yeah.
You also can move faster when you're stressed.
I'm talking like a PTSD situation also.
You mean like for weeks beforehand they are in a stressful
like you're in a
situation.
high stress situation. Like
so
your
then
mind
what? They can see in other dimensions?
I feel like, you know how like if you're in fight or flight. And
there's two fight or flights. There's fight or flight that's emotional. You're depressed about something that happened. So you're just in an emotionally fight or flight. Or there's fight or flight in the moment somebody puts a gun to your head.
Right. Well, it can happen either way because under those circumstances and situations, anything is possible. Huh. But I feel like long-term PTSD or long-term you're in fight or flight, I think it puts you sometimes in an altered state because your mind is operating at such an emergency state. And it's kind of almost, I feel like hyper aware. So the senses are different.
There's something to that.
And then you can sense or experience things that you normally wouldn't.
But this person doesn't seem like that. That's was going on.
No. But the feeling I'm getting intuitively is I feel like this person was actually experiencing something. They were experiencing a multidimensional experience versus it actually being.
Why do you say that?
I don't. It's intuitively.
Oh, okay.
Just intuitively with no facts. It's just my own intuition.
Your gut feeling is that this was
my gut feeling. Like if somebody was sitting next to this person in the room, they would not be hearing the footsteps. Is the feeling I get. It's almost like a waking nightmare. It's like when you're in a nightmare state and you're paralyzed and you think it's really real, but some people have these like lucid dreaming where they're half in and out. It's almost like this, but this person was awake, but it's like you're in between dimensions. Intuitively, I just feel
that's such a slippery area because it almost sounds like you're saying it's not real.
But then again, go back 10 minutes to our conversation where we said, what is real?
So yes, this is good stuff. Okay, guys. So what you experience is real. Some people say on some level, meaning that your experience is true to your experience, right? It's real. Mm-hmm. Now, a million people can say to a medium, there's no spirits in this room. Or forget about being a medium if you don't believe in psychics. What about the grandmother who's in the hospital bed, who's about to die, and she says the names of two people who are like her brother and sister, they're here. Are you going to say, no, they're not there because you can't see them? Or are you going to say, oh, grandma, you're just hallucinating.
Right.
Oh, she just believes in those things, so it's there.
Yeah.
Well, how do you know that that's what it is?
Or the little kid who sees somebody like the grandfather in the room. Yeah.
So this is why we are utterly always fascinated by like who are we? Where do we come from? What is life? What is death? What is this unknown?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to share with you. You only have heard me tell you this story like once or twice. Uh-huh. When I was 5 years old, there was an incident that happened that I'd like to close the show with. Uh-huh. So I was 5 years old. It was one of my earliest memories. And actually, I did tell this story in one of our previous shows. So I was laying in the front room, and there's a little futon kind of situation. And this is in the early 70s. And I was 5 years old. My mom is sleeping in the next room. It's a very small house, little guest house. And I woke up to seeing a man, full man, kneeling down by the edge of my bed. I saw the wrinkles on his face. I saw the gray hair on his head. He was literally right there. It was a person right there. And I
regular human.
Regular human. I could describe him to a T exactly what he looks like. I start screaming, blood-curdling screams. I wake up and I see this. And my mom falls out of the bed, runs into, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I described what I saw. Yeah. And she absolutely couldn't believe it. But she said that her dad had she told me way later that her dad had just died. I think it was either that day or the day before in another country. Yeah. And she knew about it. And of course, I was too young to know about it. And he had come to visit and he saw me and I saw him.
He wanted to see his little granddaughter.
Yeah. But see how far back it goes that I was open to these types of things and I didn't know at the time.
But I think that also has, yes, with someone like yourself, it's like someone who's born with a musical ability. There are kids who are born with musical abilities and you recognize it very young. Yeah. Where either they can dance or they can carry a tune better than another kid. Mm-hmm. A lot of the times intuition or psychic senses are apparent when kids are very, very young.
Yeah. That's when you find out about it.
Yeah. For me, it was that I was afraid of the dark. Not all the dark, but certain places. And like I was afraid to go to the basement or the attic in our house growing up. But
'Cause
my
you
two
felt-
older
you felt all the spirits.
Well, my two older brothers weren't afraid, so it was like, well, you're watching too many scary movies when you're a kid, and Riz, that's not real because your brothers are not afraid to go there. And I was like, that's because they don't feel it. I feel it. So this is what is incredible. I'm looking forward to actually diving in deeper into Reddit with you guys, because I think there's a lot of juicy stuff.
Yeah,
here.
there's a lot of
I think
good
we should
stories.
do a part 2 to this.
I think we should keep going
Part
in
three,
general.
okay, cool.
Let's just keep this
All
rolling.
right, we're going to do more of the best of the
Let
paranormal
us
stories
know.
from Reddit in 2024.
That's right. Let us know in the comments below what you think about these stories. And if you have any stories you'd like to share, please drop them below. And we'd love to see you next time
And creep it real.
on Reddit. All right, everybody. Bye-bye.